What's going on, guys? Cubeologist here, and today I'm going to show you how to make your MoYu Skewb awesome. Alright guys, so to start off this video, I just want to let you know what I've done to this Skewb so far. I ordered it, you saw the unboxing. It's been a week or two, and as you can see, I've re-stickered it. You can tell that the Florian cut stickers from the cubicle fit really well. I've also done about 200 or 300 solves on it. So it's really broken in, it moves really well, and I'm really happy with it so far. But there are things we can do to make this better, and that's what I wanted to show you. Now, if you're somebody who likes to get prepared for things, just so you know, what I'm going to be using in this tutorial is a heavy lube, weight 5 lube for the core, weight 2 lube for the pieces. I've got a file, some wire cutters, and a screwdriver. And I think that's all that we're going to be using. So let's get into this. The first thing we're going to do is you want to find which 4 corners are the fixed corners. So we have 4 corners attached to the core and 4 corners that are floating. Now, the way you can tell is, I don't know if you can see it on camera, but if you look really closely at some of these corners, you can see right there, there's a small line. That means this is a cap. So that means that this is a corner that's fixed to the core, and you want to pop that off of there. I have to use a tool because mine are on there really, really well. I've done this a couple times just to see how I can do it. That seems to be the best way. So I like to pop one of the fixed corners off, go ahead and undo that screw. I've experimented a couple different ways of taking this apart, and I've almost broke the torpedoes by trying to force it. So I think that taking one of the screws out is probably the safest and easiest way. Okay, we'll put that up there where we won't lose it. And I'm just going to be setting everything, organizing everything so I don't lose it, because I tend to lose pieces. And it just falls apart like that. And now you want to go ahead and remove the other 3 remaining corner pieces from the core. Now they're a little bit difficult, so you might need to get a tool or something, but you can figure it out, I'm sure. And I'll cut away while I do that, and I'll be right back. Alright, now as you can see, I've got everything disassembled. I've got all the screws taken out of the core, and everything's laid out here. What we're going to do first, after we have it like this, is to lube the hardware and the core. So grab your heavy lube, whatever it is. I'm using weight 5 from the cubicle, but you can use Lubix, you can use Traxxas 50K, or probably even 30K. Anything you want, just as long as it's a heavy silicone lubricant. So let's take a look here. So the first thing we're going to do here is go ahead and lube the pieces that attach to the core and the hardware that's inside of them. When you pull out a spring here, or when you pull out a screw, you can see that there is a washer on it with a spring. And what you want to do first is, just like with the how to lube an O-long tutorial, and with most lubing tutorials, you can see down in there there's a lip, and there's actually one further down in. You want to put a little bit of heavy lubricant on those. Now, it doesn't take much. About that much is all you need. So go ahead and get it ready there and put it on the lip of this corner, and then the one that's on down. Alright, then grab the washer, find the smooth side, and you want to make sure that's facing up toward the spring. So take the washer and put it on here and feed it right down in there, smooth side up, and it should stick to the lube that you've already put in there. And now you want to put a little bit of lube on top of that washer, just to make sure that the spring isn't making any noise on top of it and that there's reduced friction. Now take your screw, and you want to put a little bit of lube right here on the back of the top of it, just to reduce spring noise and friction. Then once that's done, just put the spring and the screw back in, set it aside, and do the rest of them. Now I'm going to cut away and go ahead and do the rest of these. Alright, now all the hardware that is in the pieces that attach to the core has been lubed. Now at this point I do something that I don't think a lot of people do, And it might be something that's not necessary, but I've always done it. I like to check and make sure that there's no flash or anything on my core. I don't know that it matters a lot, but just to make sure that there are no excuses. I always hate to think that there might be an internal problem with my cube. I like to blame anything but my turning style, honestly, and that's really probably the only problem. But I just like to get rid of all the flash and everything just to make sure that it's all perfect. Next, we're going to put these pieces back in the core. So, just like with most other tutorials, you want to put the screwdriver in the screw, pull down on this piece, and try your best to put it straight in the core. I don't think wobble happens that much on these puzzles because the screws are so long. So you just want to put it in there just slightly, not too much at all. I'm going to go ahead and put the rest in here. Alright, so the reason that I said to just put them in there a little bit is because that we have to get some lube in between this piece and the screw right there. So the more leeway, the more pull that we have on that, the more that we can get in there with the lubrication. So let's do this. I'll just show you one piece, and so you're not bored, and then we can move on. So the way we're going to do this is hold it like this and pull the piece up like that, and then just put lube as close to the bottom of that center piece as you can, and then just twist as you let the piece down. Just pull it back and forth and twist back and forth, and then that should work that in. And you want to do that with all the pieces. Now after you've lubed the piece, just to keep it straight in your head, I just go ahead and put a center cap back on it. Just because I don't really like the method of tying it up anymore, I still get them confused. So just throw a center cap on the ones that you've already done, and then move on to the next ones. Now that we've got everything lubed as far as the hardware and the core goes, you want to make sure that you have all four of these pieces tensioned the same amount. Now you want to keep them pretty loose, but just make sure they're equally tensioned. So you can just go through and check them one at a time. That one actually needs tightened a little bit. Check them one at a time just to see the distance, and make sure that it is fairly close, that it's all even. That will make retensioning and adjusting your tensions once we get it back together a lot easier. So now let's go into looking at the pieces. So now we're going to get into the modification part of this video. The mod that I've found actually loosens up the springs behind the ball bearings, and it makes it feel a lot better. So the first thing we want to do is undo this screw right here in the bottom of the corner, the floating corner. Then this piece should just come right off. Oh, one of the springs has already came out. You want to take out the ball bearings and the springs, and be really careful because these ball bearings will fly everywhere if you're not careful on how you pull them out. Now that we've got everything disassembled here, let me show you what you have to do to make this a little bit better. Get your spring, and as you can see, it's not that heavy of a spring, but it actually takes up this whole place here before you put the ball bearing in. So what I found to do is you actually cut this last coil off of this spring, and that loosens it up enough to make your Skewb feel really nice when you turn. So get some wire cutters or whatever you like to use. If you have shears or something that you don't mind to dull, they work as well. But you literally just want to take the first coil and just snip it off. Now that amount right there is all that you're taking off of these springs. You don't want to cut off too much or there won't be any clicking mechanism at all in your cube. But if you cut off just a little bit, it'll soften it up for you. Now it's not going to matter that this side doesn't have this smooth surface like that one, because when you put it back in the cube, it's just going to be setting against that back piece, and the side that is smooth will still have a way to rotate around the ball bearing. So you want to set the spring down in the cube just like that, put the ball bearing on top of it, and push them both down in. And now I'm going to do the rest of these springs to the rest of the pieces, and I'll get right back with you. And you can feel the difference as soon as you do that mod, because the ball bearings have a lot less resistance when you push in on them. Okay, so now that we have done the spring mod on all 12 springs, we can go ahead and start thinking about lubing the pieces. Now, how I lube a Skewb, and some people may do it differently, is I just lube the center pieces and I let it actually flow around the cube as I'm working it in. And what I do to these center pieces is I put a small amount right under each wing of the torpedo mechanism, and then I put a small amount in this track right under there, as you can see. And that has always worked for me. And I'm going to go ahead and do all my centers, and I'll be right back. Alright, so now we're going to assemble the Skewb. We've got all the pieces lubricated, we've got the mod completed, the core and the hardware is lubricated, and we can get it back to where we can solve it. So the way I actually assemble the Skewb is grab a center and put it into place and put that down. Then you want to grab the floating corner that has the one of the same colors as the center on it, and you want to put that in the Skewb like that, so the two pieces are adjacent. Then you can use that corner as a guide to show you what these two centers are, so we know now that this is white and this is orange. So let's find the white center and put it in like that. And now we can get the orange center and put it in on this side. Now you want to grab also the other white floating corner that goes on the other side of this, and you can put it in right there. Just like that. And then you also use this as a guide to show you where the next two centers go. So we know that red goes here and blue goes here. So we'll get the red one and put it in. And then we'll get the blue one as well and put it in. Then these corners are trivial. You know exactly where they go because of the colors that are on them. And now, if you've left your cube pretty loose, you can just pop this last center right into place. Now you can see there is like an upper and a lower torpedo on here, an upper and a lower one. The way you want to do this is the lower torpedo is what hooks into the cross pieces, and the upper torpedo is what hooks under the pieces that go in the core. So you want to make sure this lower torpedo goes this way, like that, and then you can just pop the piece right in. Alright, now I can tell by turning this that it's already much more loose, not just from the core pieces, but I can tell that the clicking mechanism is much more giving. It clicks into place, but it's a lot more subtle than it used to be, and that's what I was looking for. So let's go ahead and tighten these tensions back up. I do it probably half turn at a time until I'm satisfied, and then I'll put the rest of the corners on. So let me tighten this up and I'll be right back. Alright, now that I've tightened the Skewb back up to the tensions that I like, I'm going to go ahead and put these corners back on. Just find how they're oriented here, and they're pretty easy to put back on. And it also helps if you're going to be doing like further modifications to your Skewb to remember which ones are your fixed corners and which ones are your floating corners. So I always remember that the green, white, red is fixed because that's the one that you hold forward to scramble in WCA scrambles. So, and I have to say that this already feels so much better. And you want to work in the lube and everything that you did. You actually have to make sure that the springs are okay and everything's good, but the cube is not over lubed, it's not overly loose, but it has a much better feel now. It feels like somebody's Skewb that's used it for years and years, just because the ball bearings have a lot more room to play with. They click into place, but you can easily turn this cube as fast as you want to. So now all this Skewb needs now is somebody who is quick at Skewb, and that's not me, but I'm working on it. So stay tuned, guys. Hopefully in the next week or so I'll have some walkthrough Skewb solves and maybe an average of 5 up. But this has been my tutorial on how to mod and just generally make your Skewb pretty awesome, and I'm pretty happy with my results. Let me know if you do this down in the comments below, and let me know if you like the spring cutting modification, because I think it's great actually. But thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you soon.